Today, we're going to be talking about increasing operational efficiency through IT service management and identity exploitation management, which we'll get into a little bit later. And our goal is to show in clear, engaging terms how they align with your business goals. So we divided this up into three quick sections. So I'll do a short intro first. And doing intros, we'll start by introducing the panelists today. So I've been with 3GC for almost 15 years as a VP of Business Development, and I also work really closely with our red team on client engagements. Now, the company's been around for over 2 decades, and along the way, we also started another company called PandoBlocks that has a managed data warehouse tool product with some super cool AI features woven into it. Now, this year, we're working on bridging the two companies together, so it's really exciting for us to be able to offer some new services. Next up, among our panelists, we're very lucky and honored to have David Swisher. And David's a 30-year veteran IT leader. 8 of those years, he was with the Air Force, and the rest in the civilian world. Now, mainly in the manufacturing space with companies like ITSM, America, and Hemisphere GPS. But David is here today representing GPA Global and will help us dive into a real-world case study of how ITSM and IEM worked for GPA. Also on today's panel is George Stone, a former Marine and a self-proclaimed control freak who heads up 3GC Group's IT operations side of the business. He also comes from decades of experience establishing and maturing IT operations for mostly mid to large enterprises like Procter & Gamble and Bank of America. And you'll be able to hear a lot from both of these guys in the rest of this webinar. So what's the agenda look like? Really quick, we'll get into a lot of details about signs your company is ready for an ITSM and how to position and message those challenges to key stakeholders in your company. We'll go over what's an ITSM and IEM practice look like, how they work, and what their benefits are. Next, we'll show how that looks in practical terms with a real-world case study. And that's really where we want to spend the bulk of our time in today's webinar. We want to talk through that case study, David's actual experience, George's experience, working through that together, and also give you guys opportunities to ask some questions. We'll also have a QA at the end for any questions you guys might have. We'll periodically be posting a link to the Zoom chat for any of you interested in scheduling a discovery meeting. Now, the first 10 companies to do a discovery call will get a free IES worth about $5,000. And by the way, that's the same IES we did for GPA Global, which we'll be talking about later. And it helped them find some vulnerabilities that standard security assessments and monitoring tools missed. It actually helped them fine-tune their other security tools as well. And GPA Global was able to use our IES results to tighten up a lot of their security gaps. And finally, don't worry about taking notes, as this webinar will be recorded, and we'll send a link to you after the webinar is over. So before we get started in the meat of today's webinar, let me just spend a few quick words talking a little bit about 3GC. So some of our clients might be in the audience today, and you guys may remember our earliest years as a VAR and technology support services company. Now, we have come a long way since those early days, and today we're an IT MSP with a unique set of services refined over decades with help from experienced technical and business leaders. Now, we provide both IT and digital operations consulting and support. We help build and manage cloud and SaaS infrastructures. And finally, and most importantly, we provide an industry-first data service desk. And that data service desk is unique because it combines both service management for data and support management for data in a single operational package. And with that, we help companies transition from, many of you may remember, the fragmented technology solutions approach where you're either doing best in breed or working together to find a cohesive solution. But today, we're able to offer now this continuously maturing IT operation. And critically, we provide all of this without the need for expensive and dramatic changes to the way you do business every day. And that's really our focus. Our goal is to always make enterprise solutions as painless and easy as possible to adopt. So last up in this section, just a few quick logos. Some of these companies, these are our clients, and some of them we've been working with for over a decade. And you'll see over there GPA Global in the lower right, and that's the one we'll be doing a case study on today. So with that, let's get into the meat of today's webinar, the main reason why you guys are here. I'd like to hand this over to George to discuss ITSM and IEM today. George?
This year's reality, everybody's stretched too thin, some critically. Everybody's budgets are getting smaller. Your ability to innovate is being stalled. Most are just keeping the lights on. In some situations, getting budget approved. ITSM, think of it as service management. It can be applied to HR, manufacturing, facilities. This could turn around and be a shared expense for an organization, not just for IT. Sometimes it enables you to spread the cost across the departments. Dave, you want to add to it?
You actually is that one piece that you touched on was that ITSM tool can be leveraged beyond IT. Right? HR is a great example of that, like the onboarding offboarding process. We'll get deeper into this, of course, but it's an amazing tool that can be used way beyond just IT. And that's something that we were looking with that we did with GPA.
ITSM is really the foundation of ITIL and other frameworks. It's a strategic, structured approach. This practice builds efficiencies and integrates well into other spaces such as security, compliance, and financials. Add in monitoring and security. So if something does go bump in the middle of the night, you know about it. Like Tetsu said in the beginning, I am a control freak. If there is an issue with production, I want to know about it before the users do. How do we do it? Integrate monitoring and security tools into a tool like Freshworks. Automate the generation of tickets, route tickets to the right teams. And I've integrated ITAM into like the general ledger for a large organization. And I was able to identify what the PC refresh looks like for different organizations over a 5-year period. So that's just some examples. A poll should be popping up asking about how you're doing service management in your environment today. We'll give you a little bit of time to do it.
A lot of Jira.
A lot of developers.
Yeah. I'm curious what the other is.
A lot of Freshdesk too. That's the slimmer version of Freshservice that just does ticketing.
It's good to see at least the spreadsheet, which I'm going to talk a lot about here in a minute, is looks like most of these organizations are moving beyond that. It's
we've got a question in regards to Jira and adoption and utilization of it. Again, Jira is great for development communities. Freshservice, again, it's an ITIL tool, can be integrated with Jira. So you can turn a ticket that comes into Freshservice into Jira with integration. And this way here, you can move a ticket into a bug fix or add a story and possibly an epic within the Jira space. Here are some real examples of our approach. Onboarding a new hire. In some cases, it takes several days for the person to be productive because they don't have the access they need. I mean, we've all seen it. New hire, a week later, still doesn't have access to the proper tools that they need. Offboarding. I don't know how many organizations I've gone into and taken a look at their data hygiene, only to find Azure or on-prem Active Directory accounts still enabled but haven't been utilized in a year. Alerting when outward facing devices have new vulnerabilities. Know when your company accounts show up compromised on the dark web by integrating IEM with ITSM.
In your industry. So the question really breaks down as basic security, that's like endpoint protection, firewall, maybe partial MFA. A lot of companies may be looking at security services now or have begun implementing or are. That's like SSO, SaaS-based security, or EDR. Maybe you've got a data security practice. Mid-enterprise is it's getting up there. That's full seam. You've got an MSSP, you've got an XDR program. Maybe you're doing static code reviews and hardening your APIs. And then, of course, large enterprise, full-fledged security teams. Oh, wow. Oh, this is really, really interesting.
You know,
I'm
this
surprised that the,
audience seems a little bit more mature in the process,
yeah,
right?
that's exactly what I was going to say. It's a much more even spread than the previous webinar that we did. I think previously we had a much larger number on basic. I think we had 0 large enterprise. So we've even got a couple that are focused on that end of things. It's impressive. All right, so I'll also kind of continue this discussion and let's get into, so some of you may be wondering, what is an IEM? So IEM is Identity Exploitation Management, and it's a modular set of services that when you combine them all together, make up a comprehensive threat modeling and remediation operation.
IEM is also about minimizing resources and spend. Security resources and tools are expensive. We packaged up a platform trying to keep, obviously, the cost down. IEM at a high level, first, it's a lot of different tools, and it's looking at your data on the dark web, the gray web. It also checks your perimeter from the outside. A lot of times what we identify is compromised accounts on the dark web, especially executives, as well as, and Tetsu will probably be right back on, as well as any data related to your company. In some cases, we do identify it. And a lot of times when we do an IES, we call it IES scan, we typically find in the ballpark of close to 100,000 or more anomalies across our scans. And then we dive deeper into that data to identify what's noise and what is really important to your organization that needs to be remediated. Basically, in God we trust, everything else show me the data. Typically, for our clients, I build out KPI dashboards, and I work with them to explain what the narrative means. This particular page right here is basically showing volume coming into your tool. Again, the data can be used for many purposes, such as, hey, I need additional resources. You start taking a look at the mean time to resolve, your SLAs, and you can start building the case that you need more resources. You can also identify which resources might be weaker, as well as trends in technology. One client that we have, very large, we take a look at issues related to, let's say, Citrix or VPN, and try to understand what technologies are giving us the most pain points. This right here is a spin on hardware and software. Again, this is the start of building out a risk registry to understand what your technical debt might be. As far as software and licensing goes, this could be a major tool in reducing your spend, understanding how many licenses you have out there that are in use or not in use. And this right here is basically just a simple workflow automation of moving tickets around to different queues and everything like that. But this can be extremely complex. And our implementation with GPA, we had some very complex workflows that we built out for them. Now, this right here is a part of a report for the identity exploitation management. And as you can see, it is a lot of data. Typically, when we do a report like this for a client, it's upwards to 100 pages long. And we will work with you on identity and streamlining what the high risks are. Now, why include identity exploitation management with a Freshservice rollout? Again, it's integrating everything into a single pane of glass. So if one tool identifies something, it's opening up tickets. It's making you put eyes on something. You know, a lot of times, you do a deep dive into a production issue, and you should be following through and identifying why you didn't get alerted to it beforehand. Now, let's go into a case study. David, you want to touch upon this slide right here?
Yeah, let me take this. So, right. So first off, I think we all know how it is, being in the real world and trying to figure out how to bring value to the business, but also have the ability to deliver functionality to the business, to innovate, those types of things. So let me first paint the picture for you. GPA, we are a packaging organization that focuses on high-end packaging for the luxury market. So everything we do is very high touch. It's points in time, things are very sensitive, and then they're not so sensitive because the package will be sitting on your shelf or in a store, right? So it is a global organization. We have 33 offices in 10 countries and across 4 continents. So where are we? From China all across Europe, United States, and Mexico are the main places where we operate. GPA, a little bit of how did we get where we are is GPA, being in the manufacturing space, the way to really grow is to do acquisitions. GPA has grown purely through acquisition. There's really nothing natural about the way we've grown over the past 4 years. From an IT perspective, let's just start there. You have the challenge of trying to take all these small companies. Some of these companies are small mom and pop shops. They may only have like 20 employees. The IT person is also the accountant, the procurement officer, the events coordinator, right? They have a limited skill set in the IT space. So when you acquire all these businesses and you try to bring them together, you need something. You need something like, as in right here on this tool, to bring it in so that you can create that visibility, right? That's really where GPA started. All right, so what do we do? Understanding how we are completely distributed, everybody's doing their own things, as you can imagine. I have everything in my environment. I have everything from Microsoft to Linux to Mac to Postgres databases, SQL databases, you name it, we probably got it somewhere in our environment. And the challenge that we have is that nobody really understands, how does it all interconnect? How do we bring in these technologies that have been brought in over time to solve a problem? So they would bring, a small organization would bring in a tool to address a specific function with no real strategy, right? There's no strategy to bring it all together. It's just, let's fix that problem, let's move on. But when you try to bring that all together, you need to reestablish a baseline. So what we did working with 3GC is figured out, number one, what are our key business systems that are driving the operations of the organization, and worked our way backwards. And as like you can imagine, we had everything from Windows 7 machines. We actually had some Windows XP machines that end users were still using. From anybody that's on this call that has a security mindset, that should freak you out that in 2002 we still have XP laying around, right? It's crazy, right? So what was it that we were trying to solve for? Well, one is we were trying to understand, what did we have from a technology base? What tools were in place? Where was money being spent? And where it should have been spent. By us bringing in 3GC and the Freshservice solution, that helped us to start that new baseline of where do we go from here. And one thing I really want to call out here is that one of the things that George mentioned was with the risk registry. The risk registry was a brand new concept to GPA. Not even there wasn't a risk registry for the business even, right? So the IT, and we started as the IT risk register, and then it evolved into greater things because we were able to bring in more parts of the business to contribute to it. But what the risk registry really helped us do was to prioritize, right? It not only did it help identify, but it helped us to say, okay, where should we start? Where do we get the best bang for the buck, right? If we're chasing after something that really doesn't have the value to the business, then why are we doing it? And if we continued the way we were doing it by just plugging holes by whatever means possible, we couldn't sustain that. I couldn't go back to the owner of the company and explain to him, why are we spending the money in the things that we're spending the money on? What you mentioned earlier, that the reality of today's environment, and I think it's been there all along, but I think it's really digging in deep now, is the resources available, money, budgets, people, time, they just don't exist any longer. So you really got to do more with less resources, time, technology. So using this solution helped us to reestablish that baseline and actually create a cohesive operating organization globally. We went from having IT support that would only focus on their users in their region to a globally supported organization where we have follow the sun model. We were able to release people that were, the purchasing agent that was also doing IT, or, the accounting also doing IT, to release them back to the business. And then the IT support may come from the country next to them, or it may come from the continent next to them. That right there reduced the spend from the IT perspective. It showed direct results to the bottom line because the IT department didn't need to be as big as it was. Doesn't mean we had to just release everybody. We still need the skill sets. You still need the skill set. But we could focus on bringing in skill sets that either we would hire it in or we would engage with 3GC, say, help us solve this problem. When we did the bringing in ITIL, and actually we brought in a couple of specs of COVID in there as well, but I won't get lost in those details. Once we got an idea, right, we had the visibility, we had the prioritization, we had all that in place. And we said, okay, where are our security risks? Where are the gaps in our environment? And not only in our environment, but what are our gaps of like our executives and how they behave on the internet? And what does their risk profile look like? Working with 3GC, we ran the IAS. And the IAS is, I gotta tell you, it's so much more rich in the information that it provides than any vulnerability scans you're gonna do. I don't want to badmouth any of the other big named organizations that do these. They do amazing jobs, but this IAS just dialed it in and made it so that it's not just a whole wave of data coming at us and saying, okay, what are we going to do with all it? It actually came with information that we can start to base decisions on the information that we were getting from this. So a couple of key things that I want to highlight and drill in on this one. Number one, we have an in-house application. We call it PDM. PDM is a project development management. The idea here is to take a concept. So let's say we're doing a new Chanel bag, or say Chanel is putting out a new bag and they want an amazing package for it. We would engage, the PDM solution would take from concept of what does Chanel want to do with it with our designers, and runs it through the entire process of designs, the iterations of the designs, be collaborating with the design people from Chanel, with our structural engineers, with our packaging experts, and take it through that entire process of concept to when it lands on our manufacturing floor and is on a pallet. That entire process is what PDM does. It's a critical tool for our operations. We had some very, very big vulnerabilities with that PDM solution. We had, if that PDM solution would have been compromised and ransomware, GPA, we would have been down for weeks, because everything that we do in that system has been automated from some processes that really don't exist anymore, right? Because it replaced those processes. So to say, well, we'll just fall back manually, that's not a real thing. That's what our disaster plan says we would do. But when we tested the disaster plan, we realized, oh yeah, that's really not going to work. So it was critical. It was critical to identify what those vulnerabilities were. We actually re-architected that solution. We moved it. It was originally hosted in our China operations, or China office in Shenzhen, China. We relocated it out of China into Singapore, into a more fortified, or more, how do I say this, a better structural environment. I'll just put it that way. And we were able to revamp that entire application, not only to make it more secure, but it operated so much more cleanly. Because with that rebuild process, identifying all these gaps and moving things around, we said, well, if we're in here retooling this thing to make it more secure, let's make it better. We wouldn't have got there if we didn't do this IES. We would have just been patching, patching, and patching. And everybody on this call, we all know patching is a difficult thing to achieve, especially when it's a business facing application that just can't sustain any significant downtime. A couple of the other things that we did discover as well is one of the things that was really impactful for the organization and for the ownership was the fact that we now understood what did we have in our environment. We went from having 25% of visibility, and that visibility, by the way, was spreadsheets. We had Soho, we had what's the oh my gosh, I just drew a blank. There's other ones that are the freeware asset management programs. So actually taking all that, and now we have 95% visibility. That's a little bit higher now. Actually, I think we're more like a 98% visibility. The reoccurring costs or the recurring issues that we were experiencing, again, if I go back to my PDM solution, we always had these chronic issues that we just couldn't get to root cause. And for some of these things, we would identify root cause, but we couldn't do anything about it. Right? It was one of those like, okay, well, it is what it is. We just got to try to bury it. We went from having no visibility to complete visibility, and which is a double-edged sword. Any of you that know that have been on the other side of looking at that glass, that information you need to action on it, right? So again, that helped us to prioritize on what should we focus on, what are the things we must do, what are the things we should do, and what are the things that's okay if we don't do, but let's just keep an eye on it, because at any moment, those items that we identified as low priority, that we should do that, we'll get to it maybe in the next iteration of this application, that could quickly be promoted to a major issue by being exploited. If this is the type of solution that IES and that application, that's what will help us to keep on the good path of being secure. The other thing that is critical for GPA is our compliance. GDPR is number one from a privacy perspective for us because we are across Europe. We do use GDPR as our global standard for how we handle privacy and the documents and all those things that come along with that. CCPA, we are a California, we have a lot of our manufacturing out of California. So we are just getting to the point where we can quickly respond to these audits. And thankfully, we're passing the audits. Whereas before, you'd go into these audits and you'd have more action items than the questions they asked, right? I'm sure there's people on this call that have experienced the exact same thing. To wrap this portion up, the biggest thing, I'm sorry, actually, I think there's one more slide for me. Oh, sorry, that was okay. Sorry, if you can go back one more. To wrap this up, the biggest thing for GPA was to get started, right? We didn't have our entire strategy designed. We knew what we needed to do. We knew the mountain that we needed to take over. We just didn't know exactly how to do it as an organization. We had some amazingly skilled technicians, but it can only get you so far. And bringing in 3GC to help us through that journey, and by the way, it is a journey. We're not done. We're still doing things. We're evolving things. Thankfully, George and the team has done an amazing job to teach the staff on how to manage the Freshservice tool, how to do the workflows, and those types of things. And as a matter of fact, one thing I just really quickly want to mention was that we talked a little bit earlier about how the workflows themselves, we don't just use in IT. HR is using those workflows. We have what's called it's an ESG organization. So it's Environmental Safety and Governance Group, that they are also now starting to use use the ticketing system to be able to track the things that they're trying to keep an eye on for how are we operating as a global organization from an environmental perspective. How are we doing with our safety? How are we doing with our compliance and our governance of how do we operate as a packaging business and not adding more to the landfills and all those things that come along with being a packaging company. The materials we use are all natural and all those things as much as possible. So it's really helped that tool is now being used now more across the organization as opposed to being just an IT ticketing tool. So with that, leave you with this was from my boss, Joe Pinciero. You know, you have the ability to bind tactics to strategy. Without strategy and without the ability to bind the tactics to the strategy and be able to track what you're doing and be able to show the value, then IT is just part of the spend, right? We're barely keeping the lights on, right? Without with going through an engagement like this with 3GC and going through this entire process, it's catapulted IT into more of a strategic partner to the business.
Yes, and in most cases, IT is just a cost center. My goal is to help IT become more of a business partner and less of a cost center, improving the other departments in processes and procedures and workflows.
Got it. And real quick, the one other comment I would make is that when you bring in the other parts of the business and you involve them in that process and you take them along on that process, all of a sudden your budget starts to open up. You get to leverage other departments' budgets to say, hey, this is a tool that's going to help you, or this is a process that's going to help you, or whatever the case may be. And you can share that burden. And I truly believe that's the key to the success for IT, is that you have to be able to work across the entire organization.
Okay, popping up should be our poll question number 3. If there was a problem that you would like help fixing, what would it be? I love watching these polls grow.
I do too. That's interesting. At least every single one has an answer. You know, one thing we probably should have is all the above, right? Right? It's like, because we're all solving for this, right? It comes down to prioritization, but yeah, that's interesting. Onboarding, offboarding. You know, I wonder, you know, from the audience, how many of you are still struggling with that offboarding process? Making sure, did you get that E3 taken off that account? Or is it still sitting there? You know, you're still paying for it.
Now, user onboarding and offboarding. Freshservice can integrate with both Azure as well as Google Cloud and AWS, and we can build out workflows. We also like to integrate with HRIS systems like Workday and enable HR to create a new user within Workday and have that reach into Freshservice and start the automation process for creating the account. Obviously, in a lot of situations, a lot of these workflows, we can add in approvals to make sure that nothing goes, you know, passes go without putting a set of eyes on to approve it, such as hardware or software purchases. It could be onboarding, offboarding. Again, depending on the type of offboarding, it could be numerous workflows that follow that. You know, is there a reason to secure the device and maintain control of the device for legal reasons? Making sure that all access to certain environments is completely shut off at a certain time. So again, these are all different workflows that we can build in. Change management. Change management is huge especially for larger organizations. Having a detailed CMDB, configuration management database, having your incidents related to a configuration item, whether it is a PC, server, application, but having the relationship built in into the CMDB. So when you submit a change request, let's say you're submitting a change request for a router upgrade, and you start taking a look at the change management calendar and you identify that router is going to be taken offline at the same time this application team is updating code in their application, they're basically going to get the rug pulled out from underneath them. So the whole purpose of building out these relationships is you understand what it will impact. One change could impact an entire production environment and being able to track that. Typically during major outages, I'm looking to see who implemented the change. So I'm looking for that breadcrumb trail. If I've got an issue with an application, having that relationship in the CMDB will tell me what server the application is running on, what database it's using, what location and everything like that. Obviously, managing assets, that's extremely important. And again, that's all in the CMDB, but gathering the data, putting it all together, building the relationship, that takes time. And making sure that you're collecting the right data. Let's see, integrating security with ITSM. Again, there are a lot of different security tools out there that we can integrate with Freshservice, and we do. We do it in-house as well as for numerous clients. So, questions. I've been answering questions on the fly as we go through this. The last question I have is, where do companies most often fail in their ITSM rollout, and how can we avoid those pitfalls? Organizational change management, getting users to buy in, getting leadership, stakeholders to buy in on this and supporting you in this. The tool is only as good as however the users can use it. Your ITSM tool should be easy to get to and easy to use. So, and omni-channel, submitting a ticket via Slack or Teams, sending a text message, a phone call, an email, building out widgets in different applications that will automatically submit a ticket from application A into Freshservice to identify that, there's a problem. So we have O365. Yes.
George, real quick to add to that, it's a really good question. So I have a slightly different answer. Everything you said, I agree with. I just want to give another perspective is your step one for any program that you want to change, anything like that, it first needs to start with what is the business value? If you don't start with a BIA, then everything that you're trying to sell to the business will be uphill sell. If you're selling that this will make us better, more efficient, it'll make everybody will love it and it'll make you bacon, eggs, and ham every single morning. If that's not the business value that the business leadership find value, that's your first obstacle. So start there. Don't start with the solution. Start with how is this going to add value to the business? You start there, you get the buy-in, then you can build your greater team across the organization, the HR departments, the accounting departments, because why for HR, onboarding, offboarding? Why accounting? We need to know if we're depreciating our equipment correctly. What about for the sales and marketing? Well, we need to make sure that we have the right tools in place for them to be able to do the job, right? To be creative, to do the great things that they do. If you don't start there, an ITSM rollout will just be another tool. And we all know, from a business perspective, if we're just putting in another tool for the sake of bringing another tool, it's not, you're going to struggle. It's going to be an uphill battle the entire way. That was my one comment to that question.
Okay, we've got a few other questions coming in. We have O365 and Microsoft Suite implemented. Why would we need IES and IEM? Okay, you've got the Microsoft Suite. There's still many ways that your data could be exposed. The IES scan will check to identify if you've got data already out there. The Microsoft tools can only go so far. We've all experienced that. Again, I don't understand your full setup, so it's hard to really give a more direct answer. What are you guys providing around security with this IEM ITSM integrated service? Basically, with IEM, we are scanning. We're scanning the dark web, the gray web, your external presence, and identifying any issues whatsoever, which will automatically start creating tickets within Freshservice for your organization to start putting eyes on issues. More questions coming in. Will IEM help
George,
with
actually,
cash?
I
Yes.
I saw one comment here. I like to highlight it because it's so appropriate. From Carlito, uh, talking about accumulating technical debt. That's an amazing place to dig in for one quick second. The reason why is that for every bit of tool that you put in your environment, you have to care and feed for it. It's just like giving birth to a baby or bringing home a puppy. You can't just bring it home and say, okay, everything's good. You have to care and feed for it. For every technology you bring in place that is only designed to do one specific thing, and then you bring in another one, does another specific thing, another one brings another, and with no integrations or any strategy to have where you can have a more cohesive um, tactical implementation of the tools, where you have, instead of buying one for one for another, one for another, you need to look for one that can do all three. They may not do all three things perfectly, and that's okay. That's where you start your journey. You can chase perfection all you want. The reality is you need to start somewhere. So to that point of of accumulating technical debt from the business perspective, the ownership or the leadership side, what are you talking about, Dave? I've given you money. Look how much money you have in your budget to do all these tools. To them, it's technical debt. To you, it's it's a way of doing everything that you need to do, but only having the budget to do one piece at a time. And that's why you accumulate the debt. And that's why from the business perspective, it's like you should have all the budget you need. Right? How many of you face that? I know I face that. Right?
Another question, how does the system work with more recent HRIS, not just Workday? There are a lot of different systems out there. I've got one client that I am going to start working on. They utilize Jazz HR. In some situations, there are out-of-the-box APIs that we can utilize for integration. In other situations, my platform developers can actually build out APIs, webhooks, to integrate the workflows between applications into Freshservice. And we do this all the time. So again, if it's readily available, we can use it or we'll build it.
Just real quick to add to that, for GPA, we use Dynamics 365. We use a HRIS model in that. And we actually internally are doing integrations with Freshservice. But again, it's because 3GC set the platform up so we could do it. So we are now today using the APIs between Dynamics 365 HRIS and Freshservice. So yeah, it can be done. And as George said, some of these things they're out of the box. APIs already written. You just need to plan.
And so like with GPA, utilizing the Microsoft suite, we're integrating with not only Intra ID, Intune, O365, Dynamics. There are a lot of integration points that we can build out and customize and make sure that the data mappings are correct. So
and just
think
real the last comment I have on that one was right now we're playing with Purview. I don't know if anybody in the audience is in that space where you're trying to figure out how you're going to handle your data tagging and all that fun stuff and visibility for DLP, at least from the Microsoft offering. So we're starting to play with Purview and how we're starting to try to integrate between Freshservice and Purview, so that instead of my technicians having to look at Purview and look at Freshservice, we're working on a way to have those automatically submit tickets for us.
Yes, so, and you can definitely do that. Okay. I think we are at time. I definitely want to thank everybody for joining. We want to thank everybody for attending. Please look at the link and see about getting your free $5,000 identity exploitation scan. And we will be sending out a link to this video to everybody. And again, thank you very much, everyone, for attending.